Coming up on No Pulp, it's the draft season, so we've got the draft special. We've got the NFL, NBA, and Premier Lacrosse League drafts all on tap for you.
And when it comes to the NBA, we're also talking about Zion Williamson. What else is new? We see which team he fits best with. And we also talk about lacrosse. Our very own Nicole Weaving is in studio to talk about lacrosse coming up soon. This is No Pulp.
I got this, I'm in it. I'm hella filthy, so I got this, I'm winning.
You already heard the title. Welcome to No Pulp. He's Zach Lang, I'm Adam Unger, and we've got a lot to get to, so let's jump right into it. Kyler Murray, #1 overall to the Arizona Cardinals. Not really a surprise to anybody, but was he worth it for Arizona?
Yes. Kyler Murray is an absolutely generational quarterback. You can see all of his personal accolades over there. Obviously, the Heisman Trophy is the biggest one. He is such a fantastic quarterback, top to bottom, even for that short stature. But the biggest question is, was it really worth it about the fact that they had to get rid of Josh Rosen? I personally don't think he was given a fair chance at the helm.
Well, I'm going to get to that in a second, but the Heisman Trophy isn't exactly parameters for a great pro quarterback. You think about just the last couple years, RG3, Tim Tebow, Johnny Manziel. I'm not necessarily comparing Murray to those guys, but that's not something that you can exactly measure him by. When you think about getting rid of Josh Rosen, I honestly think the Cardinals could have gotten more for him. I heard some hesitation in your yes. I don't know about a generational quarterback, but I think the biggest thing, you could have gotten way more out of a team than just a second-round pick, a late second-round pick, and a future fifth-round pick for someone like Josh Rosen. As prima donna-ish as he can be in a locker room, you know, as soon as he has to fight for a job, he's going to have to fight with Ryan Fitzpatrick, excuse me, not Tannehill anymore now in Miami. But you think about it, Andy Isabella, getting him as a second-round pick, a deep threat for Kyler Murray, potentially for years to come, that helps even it out. I think Kyler was worth it. I don't think what they got back for Rosen was.
I agree, but the one thing I do like with Kyler Murray is with Cliff Kingsbury, that offense is going to be fantastic. The one thing I'm worried about is that offensive line. Josh Rosen, like I said, not given a fair chance. He had arguably one of the worst offensive lines
beating
in
last
the
season.
history of the NFL. And when you would go against the defense of the Broncos, the Seahawks, the 49ers, those defenses that you have to face twice a year. I'm sorry, the
Rams.
Yeah, the Rams. There we go. The Super Bowl playing Rams with Aaron Donald, one of the best defensive player in the league. Your quarterback's going to take a beating.
You want to talk about defenses? Here's the thing. Yeah, Cliff Kingsbury, building an offense around Kyler Murray is going to be fun. But think about all of the athletic quarterbacks, along with some of the guys that I already mentioned, that are already starting to get figured out or have gotten figured out. You look at Lamar Jackson, Deshaun Watson, Baker Mayfield. Now, some of them are up in the air because they're still young and defenses still haven't figured them out yet. People figured out RG3. People figured out Marcus Mariota. And it's going to be one of those things where if he doesn't learn to be an NFL passer, he's going to get figured out immediately.
Those dual-threat quarterbacks, certainly a question mark. But Kyler Murray wasn't the only quarterback taken in the first round. There were 3 total, and even more once we got into the second round. Adam, who do you think is in the best situation to go off the board?
It's Dwayne Haskins, and it's not even close. Dwayne Haskins was someone that everyone was expecting to go at 6 until the Giants made a complete turnaround of everything. We'll get to him more a little bit later. But you look at this Washington Redskins team. This was a team that was 6-3 before Alex Smith went down with an injury. Now, as a rookie, Dwayne Haskins going to come in and play at the level of Alex Smith? Probably not. But you think about being protected by Trent Williams, Brandon Scherf, handing the ball off to Adrian Peterson and Darius Geis, and you're throwing the ball to Josh Doctson, Vernon Davis, Jordan Reed. He's in a great situation. That defense in Washington isn't too bad either, and that NFC East is always tight as well.
I gotta say, Haskins is a fantastic quarterback, big body, good pocket passer, which is something that has been absolutely prestigious in the NFL.
And the most around him.
Yes, but I want to look at Drew Lock for a second. Drew Lock going to the Broncos, 41st overall. Look at his accolades: 12,193 passing yards in his career, 109 total touchdowns, over 56% completion percentage. You look at it, this guy's got it, and he's a big quarterback.
Over how many seasons?
Okay.
Dwayne Haskins almost went for 5,000 yards in 1 year.
But here's the thing. We're talking about in the best scenario. Haskins is probably going to get thrown in the ring of fire immediately because
I don't know if he
Washington.
will. They already traded for Case Keenum, too, from Denver.
I want to look at the Broncos situation for a second right now. They got rid of Case Keenum, and they brought in Joe Flacco. So certainly not elite company that he has to compete with, but Joe Flacco's going to be starting. Drew Lock's going to be able to marinate in this situation for a bit. The Broncos know that he is not going to start off the bat, and they know they can build him into the quarterback of the future.
Well, speaking of quarterbacks that aren't starting off the bat, Daniel Jones, someone that we didn't mention as someone who's necessarily going into the best situation. Zach, I know you and I were talking a little bit earlier. Do you think anyone was more of a reach in the draft this year than Daniel Jones?
No. The pick for the Giants to get Daniel Jones at number 6 was the biggest flub in any NFL draft I think I have ever seen. Look at it. Look at him. He has no personal accolades. I keep saying that word, but this guy has absolutely no meat to him. And the biggest thing that doesn't make any sense is this guy is a third-round talent at best, in my opinion. He was probably the 4th best rated quarterback in this draft, and the Giants take him
I could see him going
6 overall
in the late 2nd round.
But here's the thing.
You could give him late 2nd round.
Did you see what David Gettleman
He did have a very good Senior Bowl, and that was what started to push him into late 1st round consideration.
But here's the thing. I want to get to what Dave Gettleman, the general manager of the Giants, said after they took him. He said, I hated to pass on Josh Allen, who was projected to go 4th overall to the Raiders, fell at 6. The Giants need a pass rusher. They pass on him and then take Daniel Jones at 6 when they think that they can take him at 17 because they thought the Broncos or the Redskins were going to take him, which in my opinion, they weren't. With Drew Lock still on there, I don't think it was possible. Horrible situation.
Well, you mentioned pass rushers. I think there's a pass rusher that slipped past the Raiders at number 4.
Okay.
Not to knock Clelin Ferrell, but at the same time, you think about someone like Josh Allen. Clelin Ferrell, tremendous player, tremendous accolades all across the board. Obviously, a lot to his resume playing at Clemson as well. But the thing about Clemson is that he benefited from 2 guys named Dexter Lawrence and Christian Wilkins on the inside. I think you might have heard of them. So you can't really double team any more than just one of those guys on that Clemson defensive line. So he's benefited from having so much of that around him that I don't really know if he's worth it more than Josh Allen, who is getting double teamed day in, day out, game in and game out,
but
and
being
still
double
able to put up
teamed
that production.
means he's good and means he's a threat.
Exactly.
So, coming up on No Pulp, we got a lot more for you. Like Adam said, this is the draft show, and on tap, we got some NBA talent coming up. We talk Zion, where his best fit is this year, and then we hit the rewind machine and we go back to last year and redraft where some of those players gone. Stay tuned. This is No Pulp.
Leaving hot coals improperly extinguished can cause a wildfire.
Hey guys, it's Smokey!
It looks as if Smokey is going to use the drown, stir, drown and feel technique. After the first drown, a good start. Next, another drink. And finally, a close feel.
Is it cool? Okay. Yeah.
Hey, Smokey, catch. Oh, my bad, Smokey.
Only you can prevent wildfires.
Welcome back to No Pulp. Zach Lang with Adam Unger. Now, it's really no debate that Zion Williamson is going to be the #1 overall pick in the upcoming NBA draft. But we still don't know who's going to be picking #1 overall. The draft lottery still has to take place. You can see there the Knicks, Cavaliers, and Phoenix Suns all have the same % chance at getting that #1 coveted pick. But Adam, which of those 3 top teams do you think Zion fits best?
Well, you said Zion's the uncontested, unquestionable #1 overall pick. The team that I'm taking for his best situation doesn't necessarily think that. We've talked about the Phoenix Suns, and they're taking a look at John Morant, but I think Phoenix would be the best fit for Zion Williamson, and
Really?
here's why.
Okay.
It's a market that's away from the spotlight, and he's around a lot of other young players. Now, granted, would he have to play a little bit out of position sometimes for Phoenix to get their best 5 young players on the floor? Yes, but think about Devin Booker. You think about DeAndre Ayton, Josh Jackson, someone who's waiting to break out, Mikal Bridges. This is a team that can really put a lot around him, and it's a team that he can grow with. You put him in Cleveland, the comparisons to LeBron are never going to stop. And if you put him in New York,
I couldn't agree more on that. Yeah.
If you put him in New York, the spotlight's going to get too hot.
See, I think he could fit well in Phoenix, but Phoenix has been needing a point guard since Eric Bledsoe left. So for them, I think John Morant is the much safer way to go. But for the Knicks, I think by far they are the place that Zion has to go. The big spotlight is something that matches his incredible large personality. And also, you have to look at the cap space. The Knicks have enough to sign 2 max free agents this offseason. Now Zion's not even going to be the main guy on this team. He's still a very raw NBA prospect.
He wouldn't be the main guy on Phoenix either. The only place where he'd be the main guy right away is Cleveland.
But here's the thing. In the Eastern Conference, you surround him with guys potentially Kyrie Irving, potentially Kevin Durant. He has a lot of mentorship to help build his character on a team that could easily do well in the playoffs.
But at the same time, at that point, you'd be holding him back by having him be less than at least a number 2 guy for more than just 2 or 3 seasons.
Okay, well, we all know Zion isn't the only guy in this NBA draft, which leaves a lot of guys outside of the spotlight. Some of them may be underrated. Adam, is there a guy in this draft you think is underrated?
Well, I've got Naz Reid as my most underrated player, and here's why. This is someone who, came into LSU, and he was just a big body. 6'10", 275. He's dropped down to 250, and his game has really showed for it. 13.6 points per game, 7.2 rebounds per game. Not exactly a ton to show for in a very, very strong SEC, but at the same time, just the upside. He could grow from a college 5 into an NBA 4 very, very easily. He shot 33% from behind the arc, which someone with that size, you can't really ask for a whole lot more. And as you got into the SEC tournament and the NCAA tournament, he showed the ability to put the ball on the floor, which is something that's so important in a one-on-one game. And I really think he's the most underrated big man in this class.
See, what we must be thinking along the same wavelength, because I also got a 5 who is a college 5 and could translate to an NBA 4, and that's Bruno Fernando from Maryland. Now, this guy has a chance to potentially go back to Maryland because he's still got 1 year of eligibility left. But you look at those numbers, 60% almost from the field. The dude's huge. He's a monster under the rim.
Hey,
but what's holding him
Naz
back,
Reid has 10 pounds on him.
Right, but what's holding him back is the fact that he can't function as a stretch 4. He's not a 3-point shooter. And in today's NBA, if you're a big man, NBA execs want to see you shoot the 3 ball because that's how the NBA works.
So
Fernando is not that kind of a guy.
Naz Reid is that kind of guy.
Okay, but Bruno Fernando is a monster. What he is good at doing, he is excellent at doing. And NBA teams should look at him without that stretch 4 provision.
Well, NBA draft in 2019 still to be decided, but the NBA draft in 2018 has already been in the books. So with a year of hindsight, Zach and I are going to play GM and redo the top 5 picks of the 2018 NBA draft. I took the tease. He can't take my pun. This is No Pulp. We'll be right back.
I see you mobbing over her. Let's go. Let's mob. Let's crawl. Let's crawl. Let's crawl. Hey, yo, we mobbing. Come on, girl. Let's crawl. Hey, yo, let's crawl. Hey, yo, let's crawl. Hey, let's crawl. Hey, yo, let's crawl.
Come on, it's not that hard.
My big man fingers are having a problem with these little tiny buttons.
Whoa, watch it there. Your blood pressure's gonna go through the roof.
Tell me about it. I'm trying to learn how to get it down. Instead, it keeps going up.
High blood pressure can increase the risk for heart attack or stroke. Learn how to keep yours at a healthy range.
Ever hear a voice command? Just say text barbershop to 97779.
That's not what I said.
Just give me that. Now my blood pressure's up.
Welcome back to No Pulp. Zach and Adam here with you, and let's rewind the clocks back to 2018. Number 1 overall pick, the Phoenix Suns are on the clock. Mr. GM, who's your pick?
Phoenix Suns select DeAndre Ayton again.
Are you serious?
I am dead serious. Here's the thing.
Why?
Understandably, I think Luka Doncic is overall the most talented player in this draft. But in this case, with this pick,
you brought in his coach. You brought in his coach just to jettison him away again when you decided to flake
I'm not
on the number
drafting
1
a coach.
pick.
I'm drafting a player.
This is your chance
to redo what has been done.
Undo your mistake, and you're making the same mistake again.
It's not a mistake.
Really?
Yes, because in the end, this year, they're going to take John Morant, and the team is going to be better. But you need to build the team from the bottom up, and you have to take the L in at least 1 year before you can continue a rebuild. That's how it works. DeAndre Ayton is a fantastic center, and after Alex Len was a huge bust that they took previously, they needed another big body, and who better than the hometown boy?
I don't think I knew. I don't think the Sacramento Kings GM knew. I don't think anybody knew who John Morant was coming into the 2018 NBA draft. So if you're not going to take Luka number 1 as the Sacramento Kings GM, I'm taking Luka number 2. Now I know as a point forward necessarily, he might, butt heads a little bit with De'Aaron Fox, but at the same time, excuse me. If you go small ball with this team and put Harrison Barnes in free agency and Luka on the wings and only have Luka,
that could be filthy.
And you have Luka only play at the one to spell Fox. That could be something that's really, really special. I can't believe you let Luka Doncic fall into my lap. I can't believe he continued to fall into other people's laps, because this is just an incredible player, pro ready. We saw what he could do all season long. He's looking like he could become a triple-double kind of guy for the next decade to 15 years. I don't know how he slipped this.
He's absolutely fantastic, but talking about lights-out shooting, that's why you got to take Trae Young, 3rd overall with the Hawks. No trade included in this scenario. This guy is absolutely Steph 2.0. A lot of people were making that comparison last year in the draft. I'm going to bring it back this year. In the second half of the year when he was playing with the Atlanta Hawks, he showed that he can pass flashy. He can shoot flashy. He's absolutely dangerous. What this guy has been able to do with, let's be honest, scrubs in Atlanta has been fantastic. I mentioned the fact that with a rebuild, you have to start somewhere. Trae Young is the concrete and the foundation of this rebuild. Atlanta is getting an absolute steal with Trae Young. I love that they got him when the draft actually happened. It's even better that they continue to stick with him without the trade included.
Now, Mr. GM, I have to ask.
Yes.
That you're picking based on 2018 and not based on 2019 on a point guard that nobody had heard of in the 2018 draft.
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yes.
So now let's move on to
who's
the number
number
4 pick. Memphis Grizzlies select Marvin Bagley.
Are you kidding me?
Absolutely not.
No. Why?
Why not?
Why? Because he was a bench player for the Sacramento Kings this past year.
Listen, you talk about the NBA
Kings.
draft, and it's all potential. That's why you see all these guys drafting one and done. You see all these teams drafting freshmen. You want to talk about potential? It's through the roof with Bagley. Some of the things that he can do to get to the high post, from the high post to the low post, is unlike anything that I had ever seen before I saw Zion Williamson, which again, you know, we don't get this foresight when we go back to the 2018 draft. So in taking Bagley here, I set myself up at power forward for years and years and years to come.
You know who you could have taken at power forward?
You can't let him slip all the way down.
But you know who you could have taken at power forward? Talking about slipping down, Jaren Jackson Jr. He was absolutely fantastic for Memphis this past year. How could you, honestly, I know I have him at 5th. I think he should be higher. I think he should have stayed at 4th. If this front 5 is just so talented, Jaren Jackson Jr. deserves better than the 5th overall pick. But basically, if he did fall to Dallas, he's basically the domestic Dirk. He's fantastic. He's a big man, needs to build some muscle, but he's got the smoothest stroke. Dude can shoot from 3. He's a stretch 4 that a lot of teams want to see. He basically, when Dirk retires, he would have been the guy to step in, and they would have no problem filling that power forward role whatsoever.
You want to talk about bench players? Jaren Jackson Jr. as a power forward would sit for Dirk for his last year. You think they're really gonna play
Dirk came off the bench
on his
this last
farewell
year.
tour?
He came off the bench this last year.
Yeah, but I don't think Jaren Jackson Jr. gets those minutes.
He will.
I really don't, because Luka and Dirk play different positions.
In my opinion, he was one of the most NBA-ready prospects in this draft. But like you said, it was all about potential. And some of those guys that got taken before him, the ceiling was just a little bit higher and too tempting for some of those GMs.
It's a matter of prime rib versus something that you can just cook up in 10 minutes. But, you know, let's go from basketball. Let's take a break from drafts. We're going to take some lacrosse next. We've got the NCAA tournament and a bunch of conference tournaments coming up. Nicole Weaving will join us as our guest here on No Pulp to break down everything you need to know about lax. Stick around. Welcome back to No Pulp. Adam Unger, Zach Lang, and our guest Nicole Weaving here to talk all things college lacrosse. And I know the NCAA tournament right around the corner, but let's not get too far ahead of ourselves. A lot of conference tournaments happening this weekend. What conference tournament are you looking forward to the most?
Absolutely a bunch to look forward to, but the big one for me is the Big Ten. Not traditionally a lacrosse powerhouse out here, but the big one is there's just been so much parity in this one. Everybody was all hot on Ohio State, and they don't even make the cut this time around. So if you look at how the bracket's set right now, it'll currently be number 1 Penn State versus number 4 Rutgers, and number 2 Johns Hopkins versus number 3 Maryland. And that ranking's definitely a little strange and jarring for people, but it's because somehow, some way, both of these two teams just faced off last weekend, and both had pretty surprising results. So that one, Johns Hopkins actually beat Maryland, thusly how they're clinching the 2 seed here. And the big thing that stands out to me in that one is that Hopkins had 9 different players score. We're seeing this game evolve into it can't just be 1 or 2 big stars that are the people that are getting the job done for you. It has to be a variety of players. And that's kind of what Johns Hopkins held. They went on a bunch of scoring runs, 3 runs, a 5-run scoring run in the second quarter, definitely deflating going into halftime. So that's a big one. But then you look at that other matchup, Penn State versus Rutgers. Penn State, one of the best teams right now in college men's lacrosse, barely escaped an upset over a Rutgers team that has practically no notable wins. So I think that it's very fascinating looking at this tournament, how things could shake out between both of those face-offs since they just matched up this past weekend. But I also have to give a quick shout out to the Ivy League though as well. It's also an underrated one out there. I feel like everybody wants to talk ACC always. They're the big powerhouses. We'll probably see the most in the tournament. But Yale Cornell, the 2 seed versus the 3 seed, should definitely be a really, really fun matchup.
We're actually previewing Yale Cornell a little later, and you mentioned people being high on Ohio State. I think I know a victim right here. I think you had a little bit of the Buckeye bug earlier. What's next for her?
Yeah, I did. So that's the conference tournament. Now let's get to the big dance. Which team's going to be left out? Who's the first out?
It's got to be UMass for me, and the reason is this. They play in the Colonial Athletic Association with Towson, and so they're pretty much going to be the 1-2. Everybody's expecting their conference tournament to come down to the 2 of them. But what I tell you is that Towson, whether or not they win or lose, is probably going to make the tournament. They just have too many good powerhouses with Alex Waddell, Zach Goodrich. They also have that big win over Loyola. That is definitely a big, huge conference, resume booster, essentially. But this UMass team, they don't really have that same power. So if they don't really win their conference tournament, I see them just missing the bubble, absolutely. Their really only win is over that conference for Towson, so they really would need to do that again if they want any chance of really getting back and having a chance of getting into the NCAA tournament, but I do think that they missed the cusp.
So if UMass misses the cut, who is your last team into the NCAA tournament?
So I'm going to tell you and the audience out there, this is an extremely hot take, and it's because I'm riding their most recent victory over Maryland. And that would be Johns Hopkins. And it's definitely, again, it is a very, very hot take because, as you can see, they definitely have some really notable losses, and that biggest one is Maryland. But I think, as I just prefaced with my pick for the conference tournament to watch out for, they have a really high chance if they can repeat that win over Maryland, really capitalize on who their big guys are, like Joel Tinney, like Joey Epstein. And you look at just some of the things that they do look at in the NCAA tournament rankings would be strength of schedule. They faced 7 top 10 teams at the time when they were ranked there. Doesn't help though that you had 5 losses to those top 10 teams. But you know, you look at, they did beat North Carolina, a team that's coming up on the rise. Rutgers was better, kind of fallen off, same with Princeton. So the wins are there and they clearly have the capacity. If they can beat a Maryland this past week, they definitely can do it again. And I think that they should maybe be able to slide in under the radar as that really last team in.
All right, so Johns Hopkins is 7-6 team making it into the tournament. Now let's fast forward a little bit to championship weekend. Who takes home the cake and do you think wins the national championship?
So I'm going to stick with the team that's been sitting at the top of the charts for a while, and that's Penn State. I must say, though, that there has been so much parity in men's lacrosse this season that it is really hard. I mean, the fact that they literally almost lost to a Rutgers team is shocking that then you'd say, oh, they're going to be a shoo-in. But when you look at the stats, really, and that's the biggest thing that stands out to me, they are just dominant on all forces. Their scoring offense is at 17 pretty much goals per game. That's 2 more than anyone else near them. Same with just having Mac O'Keefe, one of the top 3 scorers in the nation. Grant Ament, one of the top assister in the nation. They're doing well on faceoffs with Jared Asari. They just have pretty much it covered on all fronts, and their margin of scoring just so much higher. So you look at those numbers, really, that's what's elevating this team so high, keeping them up there. They also don't really have pretty much any loss. They have one loss this season, and it's to someone that was still a pretty formidable opponent in Yale at the time, still starting out that season when they were still growing and figuring out their team. But this Penn State team certainly has the capacity to do it. It's just, can they execute down the stretch? Because again, that Rutgers game, a huge notable thing, and how close some of their things have been, how some of their games have been, and they have to be able to execute down those stretches if they want to make it when, you know, tensions are high in the NCAA tournament.
All right, you heard it here first, guys. Nittany Lions gonna come home with the championship. Thanks, Nicole, for joining us. Coming up, we got more lacrosse coming for you. The Premier Lacrosse League just happened, and Adam and I are gonna recap some of the notable names that were taken. Plus, we got some big games to go over. Stay tuned. This is No Pulp.
This is the story of a boy who didn't talk for a long time. The boy liked things to always be the same. Any changes would scare and upset him. The unknown was an unfriendly place. The boy was very sensitive to lights and sounds. So he built secret hiding places where they couldn't get in. The boy didn't like looking people in the eye. He wasn't trying to be mean, it just made him feel uncomfortable. Sometimes he would flap his arms again and again.
One day, I found out I have something called autism. My family got me help. Slowly, I found my voice and learned all the ways I could live with it better.
Early intervention can make a lifetime of difference. Learn the signs at autismspeaks.org.
Welcome back to No Pulp. Zach Lang with Adam Unger. Now, Adam, your favorite league right now, the Premier Lacrosse League.
Jerseys came out today.
Just had their collegiate draft. What do you think of it?
Well, team needs don't matter when you have a star like Pat Spencer at #1 on the board. And the rest of the first round had some other surprises as well, because some of these teams were drafting for needs instead of the best players available. And one of the teams that was drafting for a need is the Chrome, and they took Zach Goodrich, 3rd overall, the best short stick defensive midfielder in the country, but a short stick D-midi, not exactly the flashiest of positions. Whereas you look at the Whip Snakes, Alex Woodall, another Towson product, just the best player they could have had there. And your Redwoods took an attack as well.
Yeah, they did, but the one thing I want to mention is Atlas took Ryan Conrad 2nd overall. That's not who they were expecting to take. They were going to take Cade Van Raphorst, who supposedly fell until the 2nd round, which was then taken by the Atlas anyway. What do you make of that?
Well, I think a part of what's really interesting about this is that it wasn't just, oh, he fell from the 2nd pick to the 8th pick. They snaked it. He went all the way back down. They did whip snake it. They went all the way back down to the 11th pick to snag CVR. And I think that's something that really says a lot about the value of midfielders, just because so many short stick defensive midfielders were taken so high, because this entire league prides itself on its offensive firepower, top to bottom, left to right, you name it. Every single team has so many prolific All-American, All-Conference scorers, but you need people who can shut those down, because you can't put a pull on everybody. So that's why you see Conrad going. That's why you see Goodrich going. Plus, they just announced, you want to talk about a shot clock, 45-second shot clock. Imagine a keeper making a save, and all of a sudden, you got to get it down the field and get a shot off in 45 seconds. You can't even change out your midfielders. Everybody's got to be able to go. Everybody's got to be able to do everything, and that's why you saw the draft go in the direction that it went.
I got to say, I'm very excited for this league, but I'm also excited for some big games this week. Virginia and Notre Dame in the ACC Championship. Who you got?
Well, depth ultimately wins out. The Who's were the regular season ACC champions. I got them going the whole way in the conference tournament, too.
Big fan of the Who's, too.
Next one, Johns Hopkins, Maryland. Nicole had mentioned this one. Now, Maryland just coming off a loss to Hopkins, but at the same time, conference tournament, the stakes are higher. Back-to-back, who you got?
You see her hot take? I don't think it's so hot. I think Johns Hopkins is going to actually pull out this one. They won the last week. I think they're going to pull it out again. What about you?
Well, I don't know if they're going to be able to beat Maryland twice in a row. Yeah, you've got Joey Epstein, but a freshman might freeze on a big stage like that. And Maryland has been a proven powerhouse all year long and for decades. Last one, Yale versus Cornell. For me, you can't win without the ball. T.D. Erlin won a perfect 26 for 26 a week ago.
Honestly, give me Cornell. Big fan of Jeff T. I think he's going to pull it out for the Big Red.
He can't score if he doesn't have the ball.
You know what? I still think he can.
Well, that'll do it for us for No Pulp. We want to thank our executive producer, Bernie Kelman, and our APs, Mason Horodisky and Tate Sigworth. And on behalf of our entire crew, with Zach Lang, I'm Adam Unger. Thanks so much for tuning in all semester. We'll see you in the fall. Have a great night.